What if I told you that your financial future, it has almost nothing to do with your salary or your education or even how lucky you are. It's really all about your mindset. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
I mean, think about it. We've all heard the same old financial advice, right? Go to a good school, get a safe job, work your tail off. But what if that advice is actually a trap? What if it's the very thing designed to keep you financially stuck for your entire life? Okay, so the best way to really get this is through a simple story. A story about two fathers who had completely, fundamentally different ways of looking at money and life. So on one hand, you've got the poor dad, and this guy was brilliant, super educated, and he really believed in the security of a steady paycheck. Then on the other hand, you have the rich dad, an entrepreneur, an investor. The key thing here, the huge difference between them wasn't about brains or intelligence. Nope, it was their entire philosophy, their whole mindset about how money actually works. And really, it all boils down to this one single crucial point. One dad spent his life working for money. The other, he made money work for him. That right there, that's the core idea we're going to unpack. So, okay, how do you actually do that? How do you make money work for you? Well, it all starts with one super simple rule. This is like the foundational concept for building any real wealth. All right, first up, we need to define an asset. And it's honestly so simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket. Think about it, like a rental property that pays you every month, or stock dividends that show up in your account, or a business you own that's actually making a profit. And in the flip side of that coin, a liability. Just as simple. It's anything that takes money out of your pocket. Your car payment, the mortgage on the house you actually live in, any kind of personal loan, that's all a liability. And this right here, this quote just perfectly illustrates the biggest trap that so many of us fall into. See, the rich, they focus their energy on buying assets, things that make them money. But the middle class, well, they often buy liabilities, like a fancy new car or even their own home, and they think they're buying assets. That's the confusion. Okay, let's get super concrete with this. Your personal car, it's costing you gas, insurance, repairs. Money is flying out of your pocket, so that's a liability. A business you own that's turning a profit, asset. Easy. Now, here's the one that gets everybody. Your house, the one you live in. According to this way of thinking, it's a liability. Why? Because you're constantly paying for the mortgage, the taxes, the upkeep. But an apartment that you own and rent out to somebody else, now that puts cash in your pocket. That's an asset. And really getting this difference, really understanding it, that's the key. That's how you escape what they call the rat race. That endless cycle that keeps so many people stuck, even when they start making more money. Here's how it works. You know the drill, right? You get a job, you start earning a salary. Then you get a raise. Awesome. So what happens? Your spending goes up. You get a bigger house, a nicer car, but then all of a sudden you need more money just to pay for everything. So you've got to work even harder to get the next raise, and the whole cycle just starts all over again. You're running faster and faster on that hamster wheel, but you're not actually getting anywhere. So what's driving this whole thing? It's really two super powerful emotions that every single one of us feels: fear and greed. The fear of not having enough, well, that keeps us chained to jobs we might not even like. And then, the moment we get more money, greed kicks in, that desire for more stuff, better stuff. And that leads to overspending, which just traps us right back in the cycle. And this really highlights the huge mental shift you have to make to break free. See, the employee mindset is always asking, how much is my salary? How much are you going to pay me? But the investor mindset, it's asking a totally different question. How well is this asset performing? How much money is this thing making for me? So the real escape from the rat race, it's not about just getting a bigger paycheck. Nope. It's about investing in something else, something completely different. When you think about it, our schools are great at teaching us how to be good employees, but they almost never teach us about money. I'm talking about real financial literacy. Things like how to actually manage your money, how to invest, how to look at a financial statement and understand it, or even crucial skills like how to sell and negotiate. These are the real building blocks of wealth. And this leads to some really powerful advice from the rich dad. Work to learn, not just to earn. Especially when you're young. Prioritize jobs that are going to teach you valuable skills like sales or management or investing.
Seriously, a lower-paying job that teaches you how to sell is way more valuable in the long run than some slightly higher-paying desk job where you're not learning a single thing.
Okay, and this is where it all clicks. When you take that financial knowledge and you combine it with the right skills, you're not just building an income anymore. You are building your freedom.
Check this out. It shows two totally different ways to go about buying the nice things in life. The poor dad path is what most people do. You work hard, you get a loan to buy a luxury, and boom, you're trapped by payments. But the rich dad path? You work hard to build an asset first, and then you let the income from that asset buy the luxury. See the difference? Your assets are buying the toys, not your 9-to-5 labor.
I love this analogy. Think of it like a tree. Most people are just obsessed with the fruits, the fancy car, the big vacation. But the rich dad way of thinking says, no, no, no. Focus on the roots first. Build a strong, deep root system, your assets. And if you do that, eventually that tree is going to produce all the fruit you could ever want, year after year, without you having to slave away for it.
So what's the big takeaway here? What's the final goal? It's not about the money itself. Money is just a tool. True freedom, real freedom, comes from financial literacy, from understanding how to use that tool. Because when it comes down to it, every single asset you build, that's another step you take towards buying back the one thing you can never make more of, your time. Which brings us to a pretty intense final thought. Financial ignorance really is modern-day slavery. In the world we live in today, not understanding the language of money, well, it can trap you just as effectively as any literal chain ever could. So as we wrap this up, I want you to ask yourself a serious question. With every dollar you spend, with every hour you work, what are you building? Are you building assets that will one day set you free? Or are you just buying more liabilities that are making your cage a little bit bigger, maybe a little more comfortable, but a cage nonetheless? Ultimately, the choice is yours.